Hail, wanderers of the digital realms, travelers of the mist-shrouded roads, and seekers of ancient lore. Gather close to the hearth, for the winter wind outside howls like Fenris the wolf, snapping at his unbreakable chains. Today, I will take you back to a time when gods, dwarfs, and giants bled to create the sacred mead of poetry. Well, bind your fate to this saga. Subscribe now, before the Norns weave a different story for you. Long, long ago, when the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil drank deep from the ancient wells, a terrible war tore the heavens apart between the Aesir gods of war and the Vanir gods of nature. For decades, thunder rolled, mountain peaks crumbled into the sea, and blood spilled like rivers. When the chiefs agreed to stop the carnage, they met on neutral ground to seal an unbreakable peace. They placed a grand golden cauldron in a holy oak grove to bind their divine oath forever. One by one, the mighty Aesir stepped forward. As a symbol of binding trust, they spat into the giant ornate bronze vat, leaving a piece of their divine essence. The Vanir followed, mingling their divine essence with their former enemies. The vat filled with a shimmering liquid, the combined power of two pantheons. Unwilling to let such raw magic go to waste, the gods molded the mixture. From this sacred truce, a completely new living being was shaped. His name was Kvasir. Born from the minds of all the gods, he possessed absolute wisdom. There was no question in the universe he could not answer. Kvasir did not remain in Asgardr. He chose to wander through the 9 realms, traveling across mountains and fjords to share his knowledge with everyone. Gunnlöð, farmers, and simple mortals gathered around his fires. Kvasir resolved disputes and taught the ways of peace to a cold and violent world. He was a living vessel of truth. But in a world forged in blood and steel, being purely good makes you a target for the wicked. Deep underground lived 2 dwarven brothers, Fjalar and Galar, master craftsmen of stone and metal. Their hearts were nevertheless consumed by dark jealousy and bitter ambition. The dwarves could not bear that someone else held the ultimate wisdom. Under the guise of friendship and respect, they invited the wandering Kvasir to a private feast. Trusting in the goodness of all creatures, Kvasir descended into their subterranean domain. But there was no feast waiting in the shadows, only the cold steel of betrayal. With sudden, brutal violence, Fjalar and Galar murdered the wisest being in the universe. They didn't do it out of anger, but for a twisted, dark experiment. The dwarves quickly brought out 3 magical vessels, 2 jars named Bodn and Son, and a great iron cauldron named Óðrœrir, meaning the stirrer of inspiration. They carefully drained every drop of Kvasir's glowing golden blood into the vessels. The very essence of his limitless intellect now pooled in the dark iron. But the blood alone was too powerful, too raw. To bind the magic, the master craftsman added pure, wild honey, blending the sweetness of nature with divine knowledge. Over the fire, the mixture began to ferment and brew. The cavern filled with a sweet, intoxicating aroma that could make even the stones weep with emotion. Thus, the Mead of Poetry was born. It was an elixir of unimaginable power. Just one sip would transform any fool into a brilliant poet or a wise scholar. Whoever drank it could compose songs that inspired armies to victory, or craft words that could heal a broken heart. It was the ultimate key to men's souls. When the gods noticed Kvasir was gone, they came seeking answers. The lying dwarves claimed the sage had choked on his own overwhelming intelligence. Drunk on their success and stolen magic, the dwarves grew arrogant. They soon struck again, murdering the frost giant Gilingir and drowning him in the freezing sea. News of the horrific murders quickly reached Suttung, the giant's son. Consumed by terrible rage, the titanic frost giant descended upon the unsuspecting dwarves. Suttung snatched Fjalar and Galar like helpless insects. Ignoring their desperate cries, he carried them out to a lonely reef, rapidly being swallowed by the tide. As freezing water rose to their chins, the terrified dwarves broke. To save their lives, they offered Suttung their greatest treasure, the sacred Mead of Poetry. Accepted the ransom. Taking Óðrœrir, Bodn, and Son, he carried the vessels deep into his fortress inside the formidable mountain of Hnitbjorg. To ensure no thief could ever reach the elixir, Suttung placed it in a subterranean vault, locking it behind impenetrable iron doors forged into the living rock. He bound his daughter, the giantess Gunnlöð, to guard the mead day and night. She was tasked with watching over the treasure until the end of time. Trapped in total solitude, Gunnlöð kept her endless vigil. For years, the magic drink remained hidden in darkness, untouched and forgotten by all. The realm of giants believed the elixir was safe forever. But deep in Asgardur, an All-Father's single eye was already gazing across the worlds toward Hnitbjorg. Driven by an insatiable hunger for wisdom, Odin disguised himself as a mortal wanderer named Grimnir, embarking on a secret journey into Jotunheimr. He reached the lands of Baugi, Suttung's brother, where 9 giant thralls were struggling in the desolate fields, clearing massive boulders with their bare hands. Odin stepped forward and offered to lighten their heavy burden. Drawing a glowing runic hammer from his cloak, he touched their iron tools, making the heaviest stones light as feathers. Amazed that giant boulders could be lifted so easily, all 9 thralls demanded the magic hammer. Mischievously, Odin tossed the glowing tool high into the air, right above their heads. Blinded by greed, the giants fought frantically to grab it. In the violent brawl, they crushed each other under falling boulders and heavy iron crowbars. With all his workers dead, Odin met Baugi. Finding the giant in total despair over his uncleared lands, Odin offered to clear the massive stony fields, all by himself. In return for his labor, Odin demanded a single sip of Suttungur's mead. Desperate to complete his fortress walls, Baugi agreed to help him obtain it once the heavy work was done. When Odin did his work, Baugi led Odin to the towering dark peaks of Hnitbjorg. But when Suttungur fiercely refused to yield a single drop of his elixir, Odin drew forth his sharp auger, Rati. Handing the tool to Baugi, the god ordered him to bore deep into the solid granite wall. Iron bit into stone with thunderous force, sending sparks and gray dust swirling into the freezing evening wind. Baugi attempted to deceive Odin, claiming the shaft had breached the mountain. But when the Allfather blew into the opening, stone dust flew back into the giant's face, exposing his trickery. Exposed in his lie, Baugi returned to the ogre and drilled deeper until the rock finally gave way. Through the narrow shaft, Odin transformed into a slender serpent and slithered into the mountain's heart. Inside the cavernous depths of Hnitbjorg, Odin discovered the vast hall where Gunnlöð, Suttungur's daughter, sat in solitude, faithfully guarding the 3 golden vessels of mead. Assuming his most handsome form, the Allfather spent 3 passionate nights with Gunnlöð. Touched by his charm and courtly words, she offered him 3 full drinks from the sacred cauldrons. Raising the first vessel, Óðrœrir, to his lips, the High One drank deeply. By his ancient magic, the endless golden liquid receded in seconds, until the legendary cauldron sat completely empty. In 3 long, uninterrupted draughts from the golden goblet, he drained every remaining drop of Bothen and Son. The priceless mead of poetry was now entirely his, and the time for retreat had come. Leaving the heartbroken Gunnlöð behind, the High One rushed out of the mountain cavity into the open sky. In a flash of divine magic, he transformed into a giant black eagle, taking to the freezing winds. Discovering the betrayal, Suttungur flew into a terrifying rage. Donning his own giant eagle plumage, the fierce giant erupted into the skies, soaring in furious pursuit of the thief. Across the icy, jagged peaks of Jotunheimr, the tense pursuit raged. Driven by vengeance, Suttungur closed the distance rapidly, his shadow looming over the exhausted High One as Asgardur's border approached. Seeing the desperate pursuit from their high walls, the gods rushed to place massive vessels in the courtyard of Asgardur, preparing for Odin's swift return. Reaching the sacred grounds of Asgardur just ahead of Suttungur's razor-sharp talons, Odin swooped low over the courtyard and regurgitated the stolen mead of poetry into the waiting cauldrons. In his desperate haste, as Suttungur lunged from behind, Odin spewed the sacred mead into the cauldrons. Yet in the panic, a small portion was spilled backward over Midgarður, becoming the source of bad poets and foolish rhymes. Unable to breach the divine wards of Askother, Suttung was forced to turn back in bitter defeat. The All-Father transformed back into his regal form, surrounded by the triumphant gods, who secured the greatest prize in the 9 realms. The All-Father declared that the pure mead would be granted only to the Aesir, and to those rare mortals gifted with true wisdom and verse. Thus, the gift of divine inspiration entered the world of men. In the deep hollows of Hnitbjorg, Gunnlöð sat in cold silence, gazing at the empty stone pedestals. The sacred trust was broken, sealing an eternal rift of bitterness between Jotunheimr and the golden halls of the Aesir. In the feast halls of Midgardr, the gift of the mead awakened the voices of true skalds. 3 verses woven with divine fire, deeds of warriors and the fate of gods were etched into eternity. Odin entrusted the sacred vessel to his son, Bragi, the newly crowned god of poetry and eloquence. With runes carved upon his tongue, Bragi sang the eternal tales to the gods of Askotr. Though Kvasir had fallen to treachery, his boundless spirit was never truly silenced. Through the sacred mead, his blood of wisdom coursed through every great saga, every poem, and every song of humanity. In the shadow of shields and iron, warriors raised their drinking horns high. To drink of the mead was to touch immortality, knowing that long after the sword broke, their deeds would echo in verse. Born from Kvasir's divine blood, guarded through murder and betrayal, and stolen beneath eagle wings, the Mead of Poetry became the most coveted treasure in all the 9 realms. And so, my brave wanderers, remember that true power lies not in violence, but in your words. If this tale lit a spark in your heart, smash that subscribe button and sound the horn of notification. Until our next feast in Valhalla, fare thee well and dýrð sé góðunum.